We're here to talk about his brand new documentary, Movie Trailers, A Love Story. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only Mr. John Campea. John, how'd I
Hey,
do?
hey, the way you said that, are you suggesting I have some sort of pattern to the way I start my shows?
I
Is
tried to get it right.
I think you
It's
did
ingrained in
shockingly
my head,
well,
sir.
actually. You did really good.
Well, thank you so much for being here, man. We could not appreciate it more. You know, I am a longtime fan of yours, as is pretty much the entire film fan community. And let me just say, you've been carrying the torch for the film fan community during this whole COVID thing more than anybody else on the planet. So, job well done, sir. Way to keep fandom alive, hour after hour, day after day. Do you
Well,
ever take a break?
I'll tell you what, it's been challenging. I mean, as if you had told us, like, say, 7 months ago, 8 months ago, however long it's been since they announced that Tom Hanks and Rita had caught it, that we would have been going 7 months into this lockdown pandemic, no new movies, that we would still be doing the show daily. I wouldn't have thought that was possible, but it's movie fans. We love talking about movies under any circumstance at any time of the day. And so it's been kind of great. I never thought we'd still be here 7 months into no new movies in the theaters, but here we are, and just looking forward to whenever they can finally get back to us.
Yeah, me without a doubt. But here to talk about what we're talking about today, man. Your new documentary, Movie Trailers, A Love Story. It's been a long time coming. You've been talking about this movie for quite a while. You're finally hitting the circuit, putting out the film. Let me ask you this before we get into your film, because I want to talk about it for the full hour. But I'm just kind of curious. What was your first movie trailer memory? Because everybody kind of has their first. Mine in particular, a young 5-year-old Chuck Lindsay. I don't know what movie they were taking me to see, but I remember seeing the first trailer for A Nightmare on Elm Street, and it scared the living shit out of me. And I mean, I couldn't tell you what movie my parents were taking me to go see. A 5-year-old, where they were showing a preview for Nightmare on Elm Street, but that stuck with me forever. Do you have a first trailer memory in your head? Something that sticks out?
Yeah, and it was on television, actually, but it was The Empire Strikes Back. And I think the reason it was probably The Empire, and I was really young, but the reason that stands out to me and the reason why it stuck with me was because, Star Wars was the first movie my mom took me to see as a child. And it's one of my earliest childhood memories. And so I had not yet understood the concept of sequels. And so when I realized and I saw this thing playing out on a screen that there was another Star Wars movie, like that's just something I hadn't really grasped yet. And so that's probably, to me, the first thing I remember about trailers was seeing, the promises, the trailers as being the promise of something that's coming, and them showing Empire Strikes Back. That was it for me. That's the one that stands out to me.
Yeah. And let me ask you this totally random question. This isn't even written down. When did they stop calling them previews? And when now it's all trailers. When I was a kid, damn it, it was a preview. You want to show up early to see those previews.
Well, honestly, previews, it's still, a lot of people still call them previews. And really, that's the more accurate term. But previews is not what they were originally called. And we talk about this in the trailer or in the documentary a little bit. You see, when trailers first came out, when they first introduced trailers, which were introduced in 1913, what they were little promotions to tell the audience why they should come back to the theater to see something else that was going to be playing there soon. But they didn't play them before the movies. They played them after the movies.
Really?
In other words, they trailed the movies. And so we forever, to this day, refer to them, even though trailers no longer trailer the movies, we to this day refer to them as movie trailers.
John, you just blew my mind.
Let's see, you learned something new already. We haven't even talked about the movie
We're
yet.
7 minutes in, and I'm already learning amazing stuff. Well, let's talk a little bit about the movie. Well, first of all, when are we going to see a trailer for the movie about trailers? I mean, it's kind of like Kramer making a coffee table book about coffee tables. I assume, like, if there's ever a trailer that has to be done perfectly, like it has to be the
No
best
pressure.
trailer ever. I mean, because this is a movie about movie trailers. If you don't get it just right, you can't just follow the formula. Are you working on a trailer for the film?
Well, here's the funny thing. I was doing a director's roundtable last week for NBC Universal puts on a film festival, the Portland International Film Festival. And I was just doing a director's roundtable, and they were going around talking about their each individual film's trailer. And they came to me, it's like, well, here's the funny thing. In this movie about trailers, I do not have a trailer. There's not a trailer yet for my movie about trailers. All the other filmmakers had trailers. And one of the reasons that I don't have a trailer yet is that as somebody who talks about movies every day, I already have this built-in appreciation for what trailers are, but specifically doing this movie, I really appreciate how difficult it is and what a unique skill it is to make trailers. It's such a unique skill. It's not just any editing can just put together a trailer. And I realized when I was like, I'm an editor. I can cut together my own trailer. And I remember trying to cut a trailer together and I was like, this sucks. Like, I'm terrible at this. And so I waited off. I put it off for a bit. And it's kind of funny you bring this up because yesterday I just had my first real discussions with a professional who makes trailers, and we're going to be actually talking a little bit later today about taking the first step. So I'm hoping by the end of the week, by the end of the week, a week from now, we will have our first official trailer for my movie that is about movie trailers. So hopefully in about a week, we'll have our first trailer up.
Looking forward to it. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the film. I mean, right off the bat, for anybody who hasn't been following your show online, what can you tell us about the film before we get into the production and stuff like that? I really want to do a deep dive, but what's the movie about, and what's the heart and soul of the film?
Well, I mean, I have made some individual projects before. I love doing my show. Oh, and there's the trailer. By the way,
it's a horrible placement, by the way.
No, it's great. You still see me. This is great. So this poster you're looking at was designed by the great box office artist. If you look him up online, box office artist James, he's got like 1 million followers on YouTube. He's an incredible artist. He is absolutely fantastic, and he's been following me for a while. So when I wanted a poster done, I reached out to him, and he designed. Even though he's more known for his sketching, he actually designed this poster, and I absolutely love. I gotta tell you, I love this poster because I had nothing to do with it, and he did such a wonderful, wonderful job. But for a long time, I like to have projects going that are on the side of whether I'm doing AMC Movie Talk or Collider Movie Talk or now the John Campea Show. And I made a documentary about 14 years ago. It's the only documentary I've ever done, and I started feeling about 1.5 years ago like I was really getting the itch to do another documentary, but I wasn't really sure about what yet. And I had a couple of ideas. One of those ideas was this thing that we all talk about all the time, which is movie trailers. I mean, because now movie trailers come out, and I noticed a pattern sometimes when a new trailer for a big movie coming out would come out, and I'd make a little video about my review of that trailer. There have been times when that video that I was doing a review of a trailer got more views than my review of the movie that would then come out, 3 or 4 months later. So people were more interested in some cases of what my review of the trailer was than it was of the movie itself. And so that was one of the 3 or 4 ideas I was kicking around. Now, whenever I'm about to get involved in a new project, one of the first things I do is I go to Amazon and I try to find a bunch of books to do some reading and research on it. Here's the interesting thing, and this is what locked it in for me that I was going to do a documentary about movie trailers, was if you go to Amazon and you look for books about making wooden chairs, you're going to find 500 books like that. I searched for books on Amazon about movie trailers. There were two books on the topic. And it was that moment that I went, that's what my documentary's got to be about then. I mean, if there's literally not even anybody writing anything about the topic, really, this is what we have to do this documentary about. We are obsessed with trailers. They break all sorts of, YouTube records, even CNN and other, news outlets. There'll be front page stories now when a big trailer debuts or anything like that. And I thought, this is what we have to do. And as a side note, I got very lucky that one of the authors of the only 2 books in existence I could find on movie trailers, I was actually able to, he's a film professor in the UK, Dr. Keith Johnston. I was able to reach out to him and he's in our documentary, which I was we literally have the guy who wrote the book on movie trailers in our movie with us.
Well, one of the two books.
One of the two books. I should thank you for clarifying that. But yeah, it was at that moment that I realized we never talk about movie trailers other than just talking about the trailers themselves. We don't know the history of them. We don't know what goes into them. You know, a lot of people still think the directors of movies make their trailers. They don't. And so I thought, this is something that fascinates me. And if it fascinates me, it's probably going to fascinate some other people too. So that's what led us into doing this movie.
Is there a deep dive on, because I mean, was there ever a time when directors themselves and the actual film crew worked on their own trailers? Or is it, because I'm sure, you know, the companies that specialize in making movie trailers has to be a somewhat new thing. I mean, was there a time when you know, back in the golden age of cinema, where just part of making the movie was making the trailer?
Well, you know, it's funny when you look at the history of movie trailers. They started off with the directors and filmmakers having nothing to do with them. I mean, really, the first movie trailer was made by a publicist who just had this idea to promote a stage play in a movie theater. So he went and shot some rehearsal footage of this play, cut it together, and put it on after a movie to promote the play, because the person who owned the theater also owned that stage production. And we had our first trailer. Then for about 50 years, there was a company called the National Screen Service, which kind of had a monopoly. They, like, every trailer you watched for decades was basically put out by the same company. There came a period of time getting near the late 40s, 50s, and 60s when you started to have the auteur filmmakers coming to power. So you get guys like Alfred Hitchcock doing his infamous trailer for Psycho, or, you know, Stanley Kubrick doing his trailer for Dr. Strangelove. So there was a period when directors made their own, but it wasn't like from the beginning. It was kind of like a middle period where kind of directors did make their own. Today, there is the very rare time, but it is very, very rare. But there are, from now and again, a very rare time where a filmmaker or a director will actually oversee the cutting of their own trailer, but it's rare. For the most part, it's the studios, publicity departments working with trailer companies that make the trailers for the most part.
Yeah, it's crazy how big. And I just want to make a comment to everybody in the comment section. People are asking their questions. We're going to absolutely get to your comments and your questions for Mr. John Campea, because this is a real treat. Can you point to a specific time when trailers became the big business that they are today? And I promise we will get into your documentary, because I mean, I'm just dying to hear about it. But the more I talk about trailers, I mean, it's just an exciting topic, because it's kind of recent when you start seeing countdowns to a trailer that's going to be on Monday Night Football, or tune into this, you know, ball game. They're cross-promoting fandom, you know, sports and comic book people tune in to see the Star Wars trailer and Sunday Night Football and stuff like that. When, in your mind, did it turn from the trailer itself almost being more anticipated than the film?
We have our movie trailers, A Love Story. We break it into chapters, and there are 12 chapters to the movie. There is an entire chapter of our movie that is dedicated to that. And I'll tell you what it is. The moment that trailers became the main event, if you will, there are several key pivotal moments in the history of trailer. The first trailer happening in 1913, the first trailers being cut by the National Screen Service, where really trailers became a business, was in 1919. But to me, the date in the history of movie trailers, for me, is the debut of the trailer for Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. That was the first time in history where a trailer became the main event. It became the star of the show. It was the first time ever in history that people were lining up. And again, we have an entire chapter of the documentary dedicated to this. And the people who talk in our documentary give much better insight than I am right now. But the basics is, you literally had people for the first time in history who were going to the movie theaters, buying movie tickets just so they could go in to see the trailer and then leaving. As a matter of fact, the movie that it debuted with was a Brad Pitt movie called Meet Joe Black that he did with Anthony Hopkins. Meet Joe Black made a lot of money because of the trailer for Star Wars. And as a matter of fact, it got so bad that people were buying tickets for Meet Joe Black and then getting up after the trailer and leaving the theaters. What the movie theaters started to do was publicizing, hey, everybody, if you come and see Meet Joe Black tonight, not only will you see Star Wars The Phantom Menace trailer before the movie starts, we're also going to play it again at the end of the movie, huh? So what they basically did was they were bribing audiences to please don't walk out. Like, don't walk out after the trailer's done. Stick around for the movie and watch the trailer again. It was something that the entertainment world had never seen before. And it kind of changed the way that we saw trailers. Again, the best way to put it is that was the day that trailers became the main event, and where a trailer was more popular than any of the movies that were in the theaters at the time. It was the turning point. So I would say that's the moment in history where trailers kind of took their place that they have right now.
That's so funny you mentioned that, because I remember the Phantom Menace trailer. Because guys, remember, this is pre-YouTube. This is back when dial-up internet
online and watch it. Yeah,
exactly. I had a friend who, I don't know where he is now, but he actually went in there and bootlegged a copy of the trailer with. He just walked in. I guess it was Meet Joe Black, recorded the thing, and then came out and then just started sharing the trailer VHS with all his buddies. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the film. I'm very, very excited about it. Right off the bat, I mean, when can fans potentially see the movie? Do you have a release date set yet? Is it coming out in 2020? Are you going to be the only film to come out in 2020? No,
it's funny. Right now I don't have a specific date for its release. We just started. We just decided to put out into 2 festivals, and we were very, very lucky that, again, MCC Universal's Portland Film Festival, we were officially selected for that. We were actually a finalist for their Documentary of the Year award, which we did not win, which is totally fine because another documentary won that was totally better than mine. It was fantastic. And we've also just been selected for the Studio City International Film Festival, which I'm totally floored by and totally honored by. And we may play it in 1 or 2 more festivals before the end of the year. And now that we're putting into festivals, now is when I decided, now we'll start looking into what are we going to do. My goal is to have the movie available by the end of the year. That is the goal right now, to have it available by the end of the year. That is the plan. I think we're going to be able to make that happen. Now, where it's going to be and how specifically you're going to be able to watch it, we haven't started those discussions yet. We're going to start those discussions next week, in about 2 weeks. We're going to start those discussions in about 2 weeks about where it's going to go and how everybody's going to be able to watch it. But yes, the goal right now is to have it publicly available. We're almost at the end of 2020 already, but the goal is to have it within the next 2 months, is to have it out and available. And we'll make sure everybody knows where and when they can watch it when that becomes a possibility. Or if you really, really want to watch it, the Studio City International Film Festival is virtual this year, as many film festivals are. So you can go and get a pass to the Studio City International Film Festival and watch it this coming week.
Awesome. Good to know. Very exciting stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the production, because I assume this has been sitting in the back of your mind for quite a while. What was it that sort of made you pull the pin and say, you know what, let's get the ball rolling. Let's go ahead and start making this this film? Was it pre-COVID? Had COVID already reared its ugly head when you decided, okay, I'm doing this. This is the perfect time?
We were really lucky that we had already started production and had actually done most of our shooting prior to COVID hitting. COVID really did throw a wrench in our plans. There were a couple of other people, I won't say who they were, but we did have a couple of other people lined up who are not in the movie, lined up to be in the movie. But unfortunately, then COVID came up. That also not only disrupted people getting together physically, but it disrupted travel. And we were unfortunate that we lost out on a couple of people, but you know what? We were very, very lucky that we already had most of it done. I'd say the pulling the trigger moment was that aha moment when I went to Amazon and saw that there were only 2 books. The next moment that in my head, this project was now a green light, was I had started making some phone calls and putting out some emails to people to see, would you appear in this documentary? We're going to talk about movie trailers. Here's why I want you, and blah, blah, blah. And we were already getting people on board, but I knew there was no way we could do this documentary if I couldn't get one of the premier, one of the big trailer companies themselves to get on board. In my mind, there was just no point in doing a documentary about movie trailers if you didn't actually have some of the people who actually make these movie trailers in it. And I was very, very lucky that the very first company I reached out to, they're the oldest company in existence, and they're still one of the absolute best, the award-winning company Aspect. They have worked on movie trailer campaigns. They've made trailers and stuff for Deadpool, for Aquaman, for Tenet, for it's a who's who movie list of campaigns that they've worked on. And I was so lucky that they agreed. So we got the two presidents of the company and their creative director. And that was the moment that to me was, okay, now I can start spending money. now I'll actually start spending money on making this thing because we've got them. This is a go. And that was probably in December, early December, that they came on board officially. And that's when we just put the pedal to the metal. Then we started scheduling interviews the following week, and we were banging out 2-3 interviews a day, and just working our tails off. And then COVID hit, but that was fine. We had almost everything we needed. And we just spent the last 7 months in post-production, and now here we are.
How do you find the time? I mean, because if you people don't know, if you're watching this at home, John Campea is on air all the time. I mean, you do a 7-day-a-week YouTube channel, sometimes multiples per day. How does one find time in one's busy schedule to still keep up that level of production on YouTube and online, and on the side make an entire documentary and still find time to go to Disneyland and check out Star Wars Land?
Yeah, some compromises had to be made. I mean, so my main show, which is the John Campea Show, it's a 2-hour daily show. About 10 hours goes into that show per day, between the writing of it, then making graphics, the actual show itself, which is 2 hours in of itself, then the post-show stuff, editing out the clips and the comments, getting the podcast version ready, blah. All in all, that show is about a 10-hour day job. And then there's other videos that we do. When we were in the highest peak of how much time needed to be put in the movie, particularly the post-production, I had to cut back on a number of other things. The last year I've had to do a lot fewer standard reviews. Normally I do a lot of movie reviews and reviews of, episodic stuff that's on streaming and things. But the last year I've had to take a step back from a lot of that. I have another show I have called Open Mic. I used to do them Saturdays and Sundays. I had to walk those back to one day of the weekend instead of 2. And then sometimes I can't even do any of them. So yeah, my personal schedule has had to take in. So I'm probably, it's not an exaggeration to probably say I'm going 16 hours a day between working on the YouTube content and working on the movie. But now that we're getting the end is in sight, we're getting close to actually releasing the movie. That's going to become alleviated a lot more, which I'm very excited about, and just in time for us to start on our next project. But for now, it was just been a process of compromising, know what I had to cut back on, and make room for the time to make the movie.
Is Baltimore Comic-Con your first stop on the promotional tour? Is this the premiere movie trailer love story panel? Other
than the Portland Film Festival, yes. In anything other than a film festival, yes. This is the Baltimore Comic-Con. This is it's this. You have to understand how surreal this is for me. I am very attuned to moderating panels and doing interviews. I'm never the one on this side, this side of the screen. I'm never the one on this side of the screen. So this is all very surreal to me. So this is a very, very new experience for me.
Well, I want to go ahead and start fielding just some of the questions. I got a lot more questions about the film I'm going to ask you personally, but I mean, I got to start knocking out some of these from people in the chat. Mirashan too said, can we talk about recent movie trailers that just spoil the whole movie? Thoughts on that?
There, we actually have, like I said, the movie is broken into 12 chapters. There are 3 chapters that come back to back with each other that are dedicated to the problems. Now, the name of the movie is Movie Trailers: A Love Story. The reason it's called that is because, yes, the movie is about movie trailers, but specifically, this movie is about the story of the relationship between movie trailers and us, the audience, and how that relationship was born in 1913 and how it has changed and evolved over the years. And the kind of running analogy is the romance really between the movie trailers and us, the audience. But like in any romance, there can be some hiccups and there can be some things that make the relationship complicated. So we have 3 chapters in the documentary that talk specifically about those problem areas, those things that make it a little bit complicated. And one entire chapter is dedicated to when movie trailers give too much away. And it's what's really funny is that a lot of people will say that movie trailers giving too much away is a relatively new thing. Not true at all. One of the people who appears in my movie is the great Gray Drake, she is Miss Movie Phone. She was once the senior editor of Rotten Tomatoes. She's one of the best film critics out there. But she makes one great point in that. She goes, anybody who says that movie trailers give away too much has never seen an old movie trailer, because for the longest time, movie trailers gave everything away. They gave like the whole movie away. But here was the difference. The difference was that back then there wasn't YouTube. Like, it was basically assumed when a movie trailer was made, it was basically assumed an audience member would see it once, because they could only see it when they were in the movie theaters watching a movie and it would happen to play before the movie. And back then they didn't play 30 minutes worth of trailers before a movie would start. So it was basically assumed they'd show you once. So you'd see it once. You didn't know if it was giving everything away. You didn't have everybody watching it 55 times online on YouTube, dissecting it and talking to each other and coming to the conclusion this gave everything away. Or even if it did, you eventually forgot about it and it didn't really matter because you'd only seen it once or twice. So it had always been a problem. Dr. Keith Johnson points out that there are newspaper articles dated back as early as 1926 of newspaper articles complaining that there are too many movie trailers and they're giving too much away. Like going all the way back to 1926. And so it's a fine line that, making movie trailers is an art, because there's this fine line where you got to communicate to the audience what it is you're getting in this movie, right? You got to tell the audience in a movie trailer, what is this movie about? And what can you expect? Without crossing that line of giving too much away. And it's a fine line. And sometimes studios step a little bit too far. We talk about some of the biggest examples in history of movie trailers that give away things, giving away things too much. A lot of it comes down to audience testing, and sometimes audiences are tested with different versions of a trailer, and quite often the audience test group will pick the trailer that actually gave away too much, and so the studio's like, okay, well, that's the trailer we'll put out, and then gets everybody else upset. So anyway, yes, it's a huge topic, and that is why one of the entire chapters of the documentary is specifically dedicated to that one issue of movie trailers that give away too much.
Well, excellent question. Thank you very much. John, you did provide us with a clip, but I had to make a command decision.
Yes,
because we are on YouTube, and you never know when the analytics are going to decide to rear their ugly heads. But I did manage to get a bunch of clips. I'd like to kind of run through them a little bit,
sure,
and just talk a little bit about some of the imagery in the film. Obviously, I mean, I guess you talk a lot about Batman versus Superman. Can you put it into context, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, Batman versus Superman. It's funny because we talked to a number of people about trailers that give away too much, and almost all of them brought up one movie. One movie they all had in common that they all brought up was Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. They talk about trailers that gave away too much. Almost all of them brought it up. And so there's a moment in the trailer or in the movie where we talk specifically about this, about how, hey, look, the trailer gives away, not the first trailer that they debuted at Comic-Con, but the following main trailer that came out a little while later. They basically give away the fact that the movie's called Batman versus Superman. And in the trailer, they show Batman and Superman standing side by side, getting ready to fight Doomsday. Oh, by the way, Doomsday's the bad guy in the movie, everybody. And so that was one that came up a lot. So we break down the Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice trailer a little bit in that one.
And just for laughs, let's go ahead and throw in Wonder Woman in there right at the very end, which would have been such a wonderful. It would have been such a wonderful reveal. And then they show you Wonder Woman in the trailer. I was like, what are you guys doing? Hold something back. Even show Batman with a shotgun.
Yep. I mean, they showed so much. And there, of course, is Cody Miller. Cody is an Olympic, he's a multiple Olympic medalist. He's an Olympic gold medalist, as a matter of fact. He's getting ready to compete in the Olympics again. But he's also a very popular YouTuber, a movie podcaster, just a fantastic dude. And he's one of the guys who came in, and he's one of the guys who talks about the Batman versus Superman trailer, which is great.
Yeah, I know we talked a lot in that clip about the movie Southpaw.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one, and I don't want to give away what Cody says about Southpaw, but Southpaw is with Jake Gyllenhaal, another awful example of just movies that give or trailers that give everything away about the movie when you really sit down. But he does a great little breakdown of it in the film, which I think you're going to like when you see it.
Well, in the clip that you sent to me, I mean, there's a lot of familiar faces for people who, industry people, but also some really cool people if you're fans of, like your Collider days and stuff like that. Did you just send up the bat signal and get everybody in the industry to kind of take part in this fun project?
Well, for instance, the guy on screen right now, this is Drew, and Drew is from, I call it Day One Eco Mod. They are trailer reactors, and they have a very, very popular trailer reaction YouTube channel, and that's basically what he does. I mean, these trailer actors, they are just literally interacting with trailers every day, and we even have a chapter in the documentary about movie trailers, but having their insight about trailers throughout the movie was all really. So I had never met Drew. I was just a fan of Drew Ecomog. I was just a fan of his, and what was really neat was we had a mutual friend that I found out this mutual friend also knew Drew, and I said, would you mind asking Drew for me if he would mind coming and appearing on this? I had no idea, but Drew apparently was a fan of mine and had been watching me for like 5 years. And so, which was great for me. So he was able to come in. We have a terrific guy by the name of Ashley Miller, who is the screenwriter for movies like X-Men, Days of Future, X-Men First Class, the original Thor movie with Chris Hemsworth. We were able to have, it was through a mutual friend. And then there were some people that I already knew, guys like Cliff Stevenson, who you had on screen there a few moments ago. He's a Saturn Award winning, that's him right there. He's a Saturn Award winning film documentarian. So basically filmmakers hire him to be with them during the entire process of them making the film. So he documents the making of the film. So for instance, recently he had spent a year with Rian Johnson, and he was there every day on set as they were making Knives Out and documenting the whole thing. And he does all the special features and things like that. So we were able to get a lot of people from a lot of different walks. We had producers, directors, writers, film critics, trailer reactors, behind the scenes people, trailer makers. We were really lucky that we were able to get a very wide range of people to all talk about this big topic, movie trailers.
Yeah. Well, guys, there's still a lot more questions in the chat that we will be getting to, I promise, but I want to talk a little bit about the topic of hurdles, copyright issues and stuff like that. I remember when John Schnepp was John Schnepp's Death of Superman Lives, a movie that I absolutely adore. He was talking a lot in some of his behind the scenes things. He's done some interviews with like Kevin Smith and stuff. And he talked a lot about the hurdles he had to get over, dealing with people over at Warner Brothers, trying to lock down that interview with Tim Burton. That was really like, okay, if we're not going to get the Tim Burton interview, we're not making the movie. And then it took him forever to lock down that interview. What sort of hurdles did you hit? Because I imagine a movie that's specifically about trademarked and copywritten material has got to be a little bit of a headache. What was that like?
Yeah, it was. But I've got to say, at the end of the day, it was not as big of a headache as I was fearing it would be. When you're dealing with copywritten material, it can be a minefield trying to navigate and work your way around. Now, there is a doctrine in law called fair use that the entertainment industry has to rely on sometimes. A lot of people misunderstand what fair use means. Some people think, oh, I can use a piece of copywritten material, whether it's music or video, whatever, if I'm not making money on it. That's not fair use. Don't do that. That's still completely wrong. You're not allowed to do it that way. There are definitions about when you can use a piece of copyright material without getting a clearance. And fortunately for me, now I have a background in law, so that gave me a little bit of a leg up right away. And fortunately for me, because the subject matter of the documentary is movie trailers, and we are giving commentary, criticism, and educational stuff on movie trailers, we actually fall, when it comes to the trailers themselves, we fall very comfortably under fair use doctrine. Now, even though I have a legal background, I still had to go out and get a copyright lawyer and who specifically specialized in fair use and have them go through my film. And even though I have a legal background and I understand fair use doctrine, he still came up with a list of 68 things that we needed to change in the film. Now that sounds like a lot. It's actually not a lot compared to how big it could have been. But even I, with a legal background, ended up getting something back from my lawyer saying, here are 68 things you need to change. And so then we had to go through the process of making the changes to make sure either we had to remove certain things or we had to do certain things to make sure that it properly fit under fair use doctrine. Once we got that, it was pretty much clear sailing. Like I made sure anything that wasn't fair use, I made sure I properly licensed it, whether it was music or a piece of video footage, I would go out and buy the appropriate license, all that kind of stuff. Getting interviews was actually really rather simple. There was actually only one person I wasn't able to get that I really wanted. And that one person that I was not able to get, even though I really wanted them, it was the only big superstar. I didn't try to go out and get big superstars. The only one I really wasn't able to get was my fellow Canadian. I don't know if you can tell by the flag behind me. I'm a very proud Canadian. Was a fellow Canadian who I think I'm one of only like 78 people they follow on Twitter, is Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds, I don't know why. Ryan Reynolds follows me on Twitter. He only follows like 70 to 100 people, but he follows me. And I've interacted with Ryan a little bit online. So because the Deadpool marketing campaign is one of the most revolutionary marketing campaigns ever, the approach they took with the Deadpool marketing campaign was so unique. I thought, I've got to get Ryan. I've got to get Ryan Reynolds in this. Wasn't able to make it happen, unfortunately. So that's the one guy. But really, everybody else, like I said, I broke down. There were a couple of directors I wanted. I was able to get them. There was a couple of producers I wanted. I was able to get them. There was a couple of writers I wanted. I was able to get them. And to me, it wasn't about going out and getting big star names. I wanted the focus of this movie to really be on the subject matter. So I focused on people who I thought would be able to speak best about the subject matter. And we were able to get them all. So it was, I had an easier time than Schnepp did. But then again, my subject matter is a subject that does make it easier for me to get it done than his was. His was a lot of problems, and he navigated those problems like a champ and got his movie out. And I'm so glad he did, because The Death of Superman Lives What Happened is fantastic.
It's fantastic. I think I caught it, not to go off a tangent here, but I think I caught it when it was on Showtime or Cinemax or something like that for a little while. That's when I caught it, because I'd wanted to see it for so long, and then I saw it pop up. I was like, oh my God, there it is. We got to watch it. I
still remember Schnepp called me as soon as he got the word that they were securing the Showtime deal. And I remember he was so excited about that. And we were all just floored and excited. And it was just, that was incredible.
I want to field a couple more questions here out of the chat, and guys, keep them coming. We still got a little bit of time here. This one comes from DMOMO. Do you have a favorite trailer that you regularly go back to and watch?
I have a few. One, and remember, there's a difference between favorite trailers and favorite movies, but one is the Logan trailer. The trailer for Logan, the one with the Johnny Cash cover.
Johnny Cash, yeah.
Doing the Hurt cover. That trailer is masterful. Like it's an absolute masterpiece of a trailer, and so that's one that stands out to me an awful lot. I sometimes go back and still watch the older Transformers trailers. As much as I hate those Transformers movies, other than I still like the first Michael Bay Transformers movie. Actually, I guilty pleasure of mine, I really like the first Michael Bay Transformers movie. I hate all the other ones, but the trailers are fantastic. And then even going back to like the Lord of the Rings trailers, not just great movies, just this epic way they put those things together and set it all up for you. And fantastic stuff. I remember one of my favorite horror movies of all time is actually called The Descent. And I still remember the promos for that. I mean, the promos just got me so engaged. And so there's that. Yeah, it's a great trailer for me is one that finds that line about telling you enough about what this movie is going to be about without telling you too much, utilizes visuals, sound, the right clips from the movie, and that just gets you more invested in the upcoming film. And those are the ones that really get me excited. And those are a couple of the examples that do it for me.
You bring up a lot of good points. A lot of things just popped up in my head as you're talking about this. Is I want to see if you can comment maybe on movie trailers, and it seems to be a pattern that we're seeing a lot more lately, where they give you the trailer and it's not what the movie is. I go back to Suicide Squad. Loved that trailer for the Suicide Squad, the one that was set to Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody,
Yep.
and you got Harley Quinn just kicking ass, and it's like, this movie is going to be fucking amazing. And you get the final movie, and half the bits that were in that trailer weren't even in the final cut of the film.
It's funny because we actually specifically do talk about that Suicide Squad trailer in the movie. Actually, that company Aspect made that trailer, and they talk about that trailer. I mean, I think it's important to make a distinction between, a trailer, because like I said, we have a chapter in the movie about trailers that give away too much. We also have a chapter about misleading trailers, and we talk a little bit about that pattern we see of trailers showing clips that are not in the movie. They're showing material in the trailers and they don't end up being in the movie, or they are kind of like selling you a movie that's opposite of what that movie actually is. I mean, one of the great examples to me of a trailer that completely misleads the audience and is not what the movie is at all. It's from Walden Media, which was a Disney company. It was called Bridge to Terabithia. That had, who's the kid from Hunger Games? Josh. I forget the kid's name. Anyway, he was in that. He was in this movie called Bridge to Terabithia. The trailers for Bridge to Terabithia make it look like the next franchise in the pattern of not Lord of the Rings so much, but maybe like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? It's going to be the next Narnia film. It's a trailer that says, the trailer makes you think this movie is about these two young kids living in this town who stumble across a hidden magical kingdom in the woods called Terabithia. And the whole trailer is about, when you go looking for adventure, says the narrator, be prepared to find more than you possibly imagine. And they're in the woods with all these magical creatures. That is not what the movie's about at all. It's not what it's about at all. It's about a kid who dies.
Yeah.
And then the other kid struggling with death and losing their friend. And there is no time in this movie spent in the magical land. The Terabithia isn't a real place. It's just this make-believe thing these two kids made up in the woods and blah, blah. The movie really doesn't spend any real time there whatsoever. It is a wonderful movie. It's a wonderful movie. Don't get me wrong, but it is not the movie they were selling. And so, you juxtapose that against something like Suicide Squad, which to me, I think personally, I actually think the Suicide Squad trailer is a pretty good representation of what the movie is. It's just that the trailer is really incredibly awesome and the movie is not so incredibly awesome.
That's what it is. It's a great representation of the film, but the movie isn't nearly as awesome. I could have just listened to 2 hours of Bohemian Rhapsody and probably enjoyed it a little bit more than I actually like.
Well, Robert Meyer Burnett has a great saying. Robert Meyer Burnett has a saying. He says, there is nothing greater in life than a movie that lives up to the promise of the trailer. And that's a great example of maybe a movie that did not live up to the great example of the trailer.
Whereas Infinity War, I think, completely lived up to the trailer. That was almost a perfect example of the trailer matching the movie, but then the movie still exceeding your expectations.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what your expectations were, absolutely. So between that and then the whole thing, like I said, we do dive into stuff about, when we see material in a trailer that doesn't end up in the movie. And there's a little bit of a debate that goes on in the movie about whether that's a good or a bad thing. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. But we cover that stuff. It's a great topic.
This is another wonderful, I'm sorry, there's so many people in the chats that want to talk to you. This comes from Antonio Medina. I love it. He said, longtime listener. Thanks, Mr. Lindsay. Oh, you're welcome. My question to you is, how do you feel about people petitioning to change films after the trailer premieres? Should they listen to them or just do what they want? I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog, perfect example.
And we have a section, not an entire chapter, but we do have a part of the movie where we specifically talk about the Sonic the Hedgehog trailer example. And listen, I in every rule, to every rule, there are exceptions, right? So no matter what the rule is, if it's a great rule, whatever, there will be exceptions. To me, I go back to this a lot. There was a great legendary NFL coach who was once being asked after a game about, hey, the fans want to see you put this guy in a quarterback. What do you think about that? And the coach said, any coach that listens to fans is destined to be sitting with them next week. Which it's one of my favorite quotes in sports or entertainment or ever anything of all time. I really do believe that movie studios should try to understand what is it the audience is looking for. But then they also have to understand that we as audience members, we're not the experts on how to accomplish that vision. We're not the experts on how to do it. The filmmakers are. And so I believe under most circumstances, movie studios should trust their filmmakers, trust their staff, trust their teams, that they have the expertise and that they know what they're doing. Sometimes it won't work. But I believe, generally speaking, yeah, you trust your people, not the faceless, nameless audience out on the internet. Absolutely. Now, an exception to that
Sonic
did work out was Sonic, right?
Yeah.
They made the change. A lot of people got to say, now, would Sonic the Hedgehog have been every bit as good of a movie had they not made the changes? I contend yes. I think it would have still been the same dialogue, the same lines. Nothing would have changed except for the look of the character a little bit. But that is one that they were able to do. It was fairly easy for them to make the change, and it made a lot of people happy. So there are exceptions to it, and that is one. But for the most part, studios need to listen to their own teams, not to people who do not make movies for a living. And that's basically my take on that, with some exceptions.
Sonic. This is probably the best question for Mr. John Campea I've ever seen, even on his show.
Ooh.
This comes from BA in the house. He says, John, bacon or Canadian bacon?
My dad won't like this. Bacon.
Bacon.
No, I love the Canadian bacon, also sometimes known as female bacon or whatever. It is fabulous, but it isn't as multi-purpose as good regular, just Applewood smoked bacon. You know what I mean? So I will lean towards the regular bacon, depending on the what's the word I'm looking for, on the festivity going on. So sometimes I go Canadian bacon, but for the most part, I go bacon.
Sorry, I had to go full screen on you that one because that's a promo.
That's
clip.
deep stuff. That's deep stuff.
Some serious deep stuff. So I'm what in your opinion does make a good trailer versus a bad trailer? Because I mean, I saw a question in the comments earlier about the cheesiness of trailers and how, back in the day, in a world, cheesy trailers, and now they're just spectacular, pieces of art in and of themselves. What is it, that you think can make or break a movie trailer?
Well, I mean, first of all, in terms of like the cheesiness of the inner world, and we do talk in the trailer a lot about, Don LaFontaine and the great voice of the inner world guy and the dominance of that. What is cheesy is a judgment based on the circumstance the culture is in at the moment. At the time, that was very, very effective. Like the inner world voiceover, voice of God narrated trailers, that was very, very effective for decades. And it wasn't considered cheesy at all. But now we're in a different place. So now we look back on that and say that is cheesy. So you always got to remember that trailers, like any art, are always viewed through the prism of the current cultural circumstances, right? And that will change from day. Like it's very possible 30 years from now, my kids might be looking back at Endgame and saying, how did you guys ever watch that? That is so cheesy. I mean, I don't know. We just don't know. So you got to be careful. Listen, what makes a good trailer is much like the same with what makes a great movie. There's no one answer, right? It all depends on what is the movie. Somebody in my movie, in the documentary, says this: if it's a horror movie, scare me with the trailer. If it's a comedy movie, make me laugh in the trailer. If it's an action movie, thrill me in the trailer. Every trailer will have a unique set of requirements to really hit the audience, depending on what the movie is and depending on what the movie is trying to do. Somebody says in the documentary something great. You got to make the audience feel something, because to me, ultimately, movies are experiential events. We go to the movies for an experience, whether that experience is joy or fear or laughter or shock or contemplation, deep thinking or romantic feelings, whatever. Movies are meant to be experiential events. You have to give us an experience, make us feel something. And therefore, a trailer, and it's the job of the trailer to give you a little sample size, give you a taste of what is this movie. Somebody says in the movie trailers aren't commercials. They're like that guy standing outside of the sausage shop in the mall handing out free samples. A trailer is a free sample of a movie to give you a taste. So you got to communicate, what kind of experience am I going to get if I come and see your movie? If I sit down and start streaming that movie, what experience am I going to get? And if a trailer can communicate that experience that's unique to that film in 2 minutes and 30 seconds without giving too much away, while giving us a basic idea about what the film is, that's when you've hit the mark. It's making us feel something. And if you can do it, you're more than halfway there already.
Awesome. We just have a couple minutes left. I want to ask you, obviously, I mean, if you're just joining the video, guys, Movie Trailers: A Love Story by Mr. John Campea. What was your experience like making the film? This is your second documentary. Any plans? I mean, was it an enjoyable experience making the film, and do you see yourself diving back into that pool anytime soon?
It was a hell of a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and it was basically just me and two guys who are on my staff already. Like, I have two guys who work with me on the John Campea show, Ray Ora, who does most of our production design, and Jonathan Voico, who is my main editor. And so basically, I just had them come along with me and do this thing with me, and they did a great job. I know I want to do more, but I might want to do more strictly as a producer. You know, find other people who have a vision for a story they want to tell, and then I will come on board and help them with that as a producer and things like that. But you know, we'll see. I mean, look, if Netflix picks up Movie Trailers: A Love Story, and that's a delusion of grandeur, but let's shoot for the stars. If Netflix picks it up, okay, I'm probably going to be motivated to just do another one on my own. I have another project that me and a friend of mine have already been discussing about doing. But I think what I'd really be passionate about, like in the next 5 years, is to really act more as a producer. It's like, hey, you've got a great idea for a movie. You've got some skill at doing this. I'll tell you what, I'll come on board. I'll kick in some money. I will help you put this thing together, and I will produce this for you, and you go and do this thing. I might want to lean more into that, but we'll see. But overall, the experience has been fantastic. I've loved it.
That's awesome. Well, guys, Movie Trailers: A Love Story. I just want to reiterate one more time, where and when can people see it? And actually, you know, one more question. Are you at all worried that the trailer might get pulled from YouTube?
No, because YouTube has a now I fully expect that I'm going to get a copyright notice on YouTube once I put it up, because there will be clips of movie trailers in it, right? So I fully expect. The good thing is YouTube has a built-in system where you can dispute a copyright claim on it. And I will be not just writing in why I think they shouldn't do it. I will be sending them a letter from my lawyer that I will have this letter that's already to go, that's already printed up and ready to go. I will be sending in a letter from a lawyer that says this particular thing falls completely under fair use. And therefore not. So I'm not really worried about it. And it's and good on YouTube. I get very frustrated at YouTube very often, but good on YouTube that they do have a system like that in place to make sure that things like that can be rectified fairly quickly. So I'm not really worried about it.
So Movie Trailers: A Love Story, when and where most importantly, where? Like, where will people be able to see this film? Online, streaming on your website, theatrical release, maybe any plans of doing a Kevin Smith style road tour?
Well, I love what Kevin Smith did, by the way, with that road tour. But I've got the John Campea show. I can't do a road tour, unfortunately. It's funny. I was just talking with a major theater chain that wants to do a limited run of it, but movie theaters closed down, so I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. It was going to be a limited run. Most likely it'll be online. Like I said, we are going to start having those discussions about specifically where the film will be in about 2 weeks. But if you want to see it quicker, sometime next week starts the Studio City International Film Festival. You can go and register for the Studio City International Film Festival. It is a virtual festival this year because of COVID, and you'll be able to watch it there. Otherwise, by the end of the year, I will be able to put out on my social media. Just make sure you're following me at John Campea, and that's on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. You can follow me there. I'll make sure everybody's aware about where we decide this thing will land, and it will be by the end of the year. So probably within the next few months, 2 months, it'll be available everywhere.
John, I could not be more excited and more happy to have you on Baltimore Comic-Con. If you decide to bring your movie to Chicago, hit me up because I know several theater houses that you could put it in. So excited, man. Thanks so much for being here. Movie Trailers, a love story, guys. Check it out. Find John Campea online. Any final words to the audience and people about the film?
Just thank you to everybody who's been supporting it along the way. It's been amazing how many messages we've been getting about it. I've had so much fun making it. I cannot wait to share this particularly with movie fans, because it's about movie trailers, the things we all love so much. And thank you to Baltimore Comic-Con, and to you, Chuck, very much for having me on here. This has been a blast.
All right, guys. Well, we got Amy Dallin and the folks at Marvel up in about 3 minutes. So stick around. We got a lot more awesome Baltimore Comic-Con action right after this. Thanks a lot, John.
Take care.